I'm taking a shovel with me.
Sure.
And just dig it, show you
Right.
the soil. This is good deep soil here.
Okay.
And I say, I'm getting so freaking fed up with this tractor. I don't know. See this wheat here?
Mm-hmm.
Yellow rattle. Yellow rattle.
Okay.
Put out the herbicide together with the wheat seed.
Right.
The herbicide, selective herbicide that kills off the timothy, or badly damages it. It doesn't tiller anymore,
Okay.
And then it looks like it's a poor soil, and in order to match the impression, they sow those weeds that normally go just only in poor soil.
Okay.
See, one of them is yellow rattle, the other one is goat spear, deliberately introduced here. The year before, I read in the farm paper that it was a big problem. This is goat's beard. That it was a big problem in British Columbia,
Okay.
The next spring, it showed up all along the headlands, about a 12-foot wide strip.
Okay.
All the way from my place, all the way up the road here,
Right.
on the lower side. And now the last years, they are going into the other fields and keep spreading it.
Okay.
See here? Further in the middle, you can see right the swaths where they have come through
Okay.
and put that stuff out. As I say, 90 ton per acre of composted manure. Shouldn't the fellas see something growing there?
Mm-hmm. I would think.
Huh?
I would think.
And this is what the Department of Agriculture say. You have to keep on plowing. Every few years you have to plow up your hay ground in order when you want to grow good hay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, you better tell us, what is causing this condition.
Okay.
Because they've run a grassland trial for 80 years at the Napan Research Station. They never plowed up the hay ground. And they split it up in 3 lots. One lot, every 3 years they put a coat of manure on. This is what this field.
Okay.
The other field, they fertilize it with commercial fertilizer. And the 3rd lot, they didn't put anything on. Basically, the way it came out, the field where they every year, a 3rd year, they were putting good coat of manure on, became more and more productive,
Mm-hmm.
and stayed productive.
Right.
And it stayed productive,
Mm-hmm.
Where they had put commercial fertilizer on, it peaked and then it dropped off below the level of the ground that was fertilized by manure,
Mm-hmm.
And every so often they had to lime that ground because the commercial fertilizer was acidifying the ground,
Okay.
And the 3rd lot, they didn't put anything on. The yields dropped down to about 40% and they stayed over the 80 years period at 40%.
Okay.
Now, nobody can tell me when the amount of what I put on in lime and what I put on in manure and so on, that this is poor ground.
Okay.
But as I say, they have all kinds of weeds here. This one, introduction, started up in the late 70s. Suddenly whole strips through the hay fields, out of nowhere. And in many cases the weeds showed up when I used to grow grain. They would show up in swaths 8 feet, 9 feet, 10, 12 feet wide.
Okay.
Just it depends on the velocity of the wheat seed.
Okay.
When you sow it with a hand crank spreader, the wider, the heavier the seed, the wider the swath.
Okay.
And from the early 70s on, I noticed every year at least 2 or 3 new weeds shown up in the cultivated ground,
Mm-hmm.
In this kind of a pattern, And I thought to myself, within a few years, there was a multi-million-dollar market being created
Mm-hmm.
for the products of the chemical companies here in the Atlantic provinces
Right.
alone, because it became practically impossible to grow any kind of a crop without spraying, without the help of their products. And in the aftermath, it brought on the whole bureaucracy. You know, they had to have weed specialists in the Department of Agriculture. They had to put out herbicide guides and all kind of. Basically, it brought on the whole bureaucracy in the aftermath.
Okay.
You know, so who was gaining? Big multinational chemical companies, their shareholders, and bureaucracy.
Right.
You know. See here? This was the first generation of clover leaves that came up this spring.
Okay.
See the herbicide, see the damage?
Yes.
It's been photochemical reaction, you know, with UV light,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
Now we get some gradually, you know, if we get more damp weather and more overcast weather, you know, as the UV index goes down, then we get more green growth. But right now we got a little bit of a warm spell, so everything stops and starts burning off again. You know, that's the reason why over the last few years I kept the hay fields standing. I figure the longer I can keep a cover over, you know, I keep basically the ground shaded,
Right.
the less of a chance of the UV light to get to the soil and destroy even more of the microbial life. Will be of interest. This will be of interest. Over the last 25 years, I broke this one off. See, I needed a shovel. Nitrogen fixing bacteria, except for a few, most of them, see those little nodules there? At one time they used to be like pearls on a string, you know.
Okay.
They're basically gone. And you
Yeah.
see where the root broke off? There's a zone about the first 1.5 inches in top layer of the soil. It gets all rotten.
Okay.
You know, the soil is so corrosive. If the soil is wet, there's a real pungent odor coming off that soil now. You know, and you see the Timothy plant anymore.
The Timothy.
That's a Timothy plant.
Yes.
They don't even tiller anymore.
Okay.
Selective herbicides that prevent them from tillering. And the level of those chemicals in the soil, some of them are chemicals in the soil, you know, makes the soil corrosive. And one of the signs is the knots on the Timothy, they turn, an actively growing plant, they turn right deep purple,
Okay.
you know. I don't see any of those real deep purple plants right here. But as I say, when you look down here, basically, last year there still was Timothy grown here, you know. And it doesn't tiller anymore, you know, and then heavily contaminated here with this, with yellow rattle, you know. What I followed up over the years, it was deliberately introduced, goat's beard, aster, and a whole bunch of those wheat grasses. Last few years there showed up some species that are alien to here,
Okay.
you know, that are not native from here. They come from out west or from some dryland areas. Here, see here? This is, for example, is one of those species.
Okay.
This grass here.
Okay.
Showed up the last couple of years. In some areas a lot more than what you see here. Let's come here. Plains come from mountain, come from hemlock, and then they keep circling around here over this area, this
Okay.
side of the valley.
Okay.
But as soon as they come over to that big dairy farm over there,
Yes.
they stay away from those fields.
Oh, yes.
You know, and you see this spot there on the dark green field there on that alfalfa clover mixture.
Yes.
You know, on the left-hand side, a kind of poor growing spot.
Mm-hmm.
This was about 15 years ago. Right where the field beside where you see the corn,
Yes.
that was owned by George Pickett, you know. And that ground looked even worse than this one, you know.
Okay.
Just burnt off, you know. But the second year, when Jörg Waldo moved in, second year he had corn on that side.
Right.
I noticed there where you see those bare spots there.
Right.
It looked like a chemical that drifted into the corn, you know, and the corn was about this high, stalks thinner than my finger,
Mm-hmm.
and all red.
Okay.
You know, that like this chemical cloud had drifted right into the corn.
Mm-hmm.
And that area hasn't grown well ever since.
Okay.
You see across there with those,
Which area?
see halfway up partly up the field there, you know.
Oh, okay.
You see those light areas?
Yes.
You see this poor area?
Yeah.
This was in the 70s when this drift went in there.
Okay.
I know what I've put on and everything, you know. And I was farming over in the old country. First 10 years I worked with a team of horses. I walked the ground.
Yeah.
And we had marginal soil. And I brought it back into production, you know, with good old-fashioned practices,
Yes.
you know. And within a few years I figured, you know, I saw some monkey business going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Around here. I cut a piece of sod out and I took it to the RPC lab
Okay.
in Fredericton. Can't find the spot right now. They were supposed to test for glyphosate.
Right.
And it's now been here 3 weeks and I still haven't got anything back from you. Last 15 years, 150 ton of manure per acre. 150 ton of manure per acre. This field has been limed 5 times, and 3 times limed, to the tune of 7.5 ton per acre. And you know, last year, when this area was all burnt over, I took a sample. I took it to Moncton,
Mm-hmm.
to the district ag rep, you know, the beef specialist and forest specialist, Duncan Fraser.
Right.
And you know what he said to me? The ground needs lime. I said, what a bunch of baloney. The last time I limed it, they were dumping, the lime pile was laying right there. And when I was sowing the lime with the old broadcast spreader,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you don't want to dig up all the, get some dirt into the spreader to plug it up, plug up the runs,
Okay.
you know. And that area got more than enough lime, pH at least around 0.7.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
And he just looks at the plants in the same way, you know, with all those weeds coming up. Newly emerged this yellow rattle, Timothy burnt off, as you have seen on the pictures, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he just looks at it and he says the ground needs lime. That's the kind of specialist we are paying for with our taxes.
Yes.
Oh no, I was mistaken. I took the sample of here.
Oh, okay.
See? That's where I took the sample of.
And that went where again?
RPC lab in Fredericton,
Okay.
Research and Productivity Council.
Okay.
Now, are you familiar with ozone?
Yeah, a little bit.
Now, most of the health problems of the people in this area, plus the dine of the firs, and maple dine, one of the main reasons is ozone exposure. Too high levels of ozone,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And ozone is an oxygen radical that attacks all living tissue, including plant tissue. See here? Some of the herbicides, they break down into peroxide. They form peroxide in the plant leaves, you know, and peroxide causes chlorosis, you know, and destroys them. That's how they kill some of the herbicides.
Okay.
You know. And see, I've seen it over the years, some areas. As soon as the sun comes out, you know, sun is at 12 noon, then the leaves, the clover leaves, they would look like the frost had hit them. And the juice was just oozing out of them.
Okay.
You know? So, when the plants, through the damage in the leaves, they have to make up for the loss of water, of liquid. So they suck even more water out of the ground.
Okay.
You know? So, ergo, in no time, the soil is bone dry again. Because there's too much loss through evaporation through the leaves, because the leaves are damaged. They're basically bleeding.
Okay.
You know? And it's the same way with the forest. When you see now the last 15, 20 years, after heavy rain, you know, 1 or 2 days, day and a half, the rivers are right at top level. And within 2-3 days, they are right down at drought level.
Yeah.
You know, at lowest levels.
Yeah.
That means the soil has lost the ability, you know, to act like a sponge and gradually release the moisture. Plus, with those, the corrosiveness of the soil, most of the plants and trees that root in the upper soil layer, that don't have the taproot, they have only a fraction of the root volume left they once used to have, you know. And the roots, as I say, plus the microbial life, it acts like a sponge that keeps the moisture there.
Okay.
I've seen dry periods over in the old country. The year 1959, the last rain we had in April, we had one downpour overnight in July that wetted the soil about 3 inches deep. And until the mid of October, no more rain. And I never have seen any grassland burnt off the way I see it here. You know, when we don't have rain maybe for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. What we need is comprehensive soil testing done. But this is a big environmental Watergate, what we got in this province of New Brunswick. It has been swept underneath the carpet, you know. I don't know if they plead incompetence or if they are really that stupid in the government. See here? This week, 4 years ago, the field across the brook, that one, I see that down in the big 60-acre field up at the road.
Okay.
You know? And there were whole strips, 8 feet wide. Nothing grown but this weed that never was there before. You know? And a few other weeds, same. Out of nowhere. And this, you know, it's a fairly heavy weed. And I don't think when the birds settle down on a field, they settle down in 10 and 12 foot wide strips.
No.
You know?
No.
And this seed doesn't get blown too far with the wind. You know? It's pretty near, you know, like a clover seed.
Yes.
It doesn't blow over miles. You know? As I say, from one end to the other in the government, they've been dropping the ball. This initially should have been a matter of the law enforcement. But they've been asleep at the wheel, and they figured it would blow over, and too lazy and too coward to address the problem. Listen, you can drive yourself on peat soil. So with some of the chemicals that work on the soil, when you have nearly between 80 and 100% organic matter, those chemicals don't work.
Okay.
They get absorbed. You know, it's like charcoal.
Yeah.
Hey. Come this way.
Mm-hmm.
Look from this side. And then take a close one. Here. See, focus on those here. Herbicide residues.
Okay.
All mutated. In 1972 or 73, up there at that end, I had 6 acres of field peas. The year before I'd grown 40 acres.
Right.
And they grew good here, you know. That ground was lime, so the next year I planted 6 acres of field peas there. They came up about this high, and within 1 week, the whole field dried right up. And the next year, there was lots of clover seed in the ground, especially outside clover.
Right.
The next year, on that 6 acre field that had been tilled up, where the peas had died out, the whole field, every clover plant mutated like that. Herbicide residues. You know, and those corrosive chemicals, when you have the high levels of them in the soil, you see the purple coloration of the stems. You know the purple coloration of the stems? And the intervinal area in some other plants, in the leaves, you know? It's not as much in clover, but you see the clover is a legume.
Okay.
It derives its nitrogen with the help of the nitrogen fixing bacteria. But since they are not gone and there's strong effect of sterilizing chemicals in the ground, high concentration of sterilizing chemicals in the ground, those nitrogen fixing bacteria are not there anymore. And then you will see lack of nitrogen and chlorosis.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Always in circles, 9 feet across. See, this ground has been limed 3 times.
Okay.
Wild strawberries don't show up on their own.